Downs Gaming and Hotel, we work extremely hard to make your experience here convenient, safe, and fun.
I love Batavia Downs Gaming.
We love it!
I love Batavia Downs Gaming.
We don't just like Batavia Downs Gaming, we love Batavia Downs Gaming.
Batavia Downs Gaming, Hotel, and Racetrack. We not only want you to like coming here, we want you to love coming here.
Folks, and we love it when you coming here back to wrestling, not the show where it's wrestling with your budget, not the show where it's wrestling with your conscience. This is wrestling with emotion. And this past week has been a big week in the world of wrestling. We had a revolution in the form of AEW, Monday Night Raw at MSG, and TNA/NXT last night at the theater at MSG. Come on, man. I got to get the two guys in here to talk the best about this that we possibly can. It starts off with your friend, my friend, Jake Micah, and the head of the table himself, Michael Partham. Boys, how we doing? What a past week, huh?
Hell of a week of wrestling. I mean, I mean, not even a week, I guess just back-to-back nights. It was really exciting. AEW Revolution delivered besides the main event, which I'm sure we'll get into plenty. And then Raw at MSG, while I was hoping for a little more fanfare, I think they delivered on the big angle at the end of the show, which we'll get into, and also the other main event angle that they're working towards for WrestleMania. But
how about NXT killing it at MSG Theater? Stephanie Vaquer, new women's double champ, and Obafemi versus Moose, the crossing of the Forbidden Doors, and Oba coming out on top. Obafemi getting basically a backstage endorsement from The Undertaker of all people. I mean, how much more endorsement can you get? I mean, that's like the John Cena handshake from way back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, that took me off guard for sure. Obafemi and Undertaker, especially in like the American Badass outfit, certainly not something I expected backstage of NXT. Obviously, he's hanging around LFG and Evolve and such. So not a huge surprise, but definitely a hell of a show. And that venue, man, is something special.
Dude.
But the big focus of the weekend, big takeaway was Sunday, AEW Revolution live from Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. And this was a solid show, I thought, front to back. It restored the feeling, and then we can get down the line. But before we get to that, I want to hear your guys' highlights before we get to maybe what it was a low light in the main event.
The highlight of the night for me, maybe not. I've been going back and forth, honestly, the last couple of days of what I thought the best match was. I don't think if we're talking our own internal system of rating matches or whatever, that any of them were 5 stars or a classic or anything like that. But I thought it was, especially the business end, the back end of the pay-per-view, really strong leading up to the main event. Swerve and Ricochet did their thing, but Tony and Mariah is what I'm going to remember the most from it. It was a crash test of a match. Don't get me wrong. It was only 13 minutes. It was a sprint. I really think they should have got at least 20 minutes. That's my biggest complaint about the pay-per-view, is that they didn't get enough time. And it felt like they kind of had to go into the final act of this match basically right away with Tony and Mariah. But the impact that it had, the scenes that we'll see, if we remember a lot of things, like what WWE does a lot better than AEW, and I think has just done well, is they like those moments. It gets annoying when Michael Cole keeps yelling, "What a moment," and he doesn't do it as much anymore. I think that was a Vince thing, but it's true. Like, we remember images in time as much as we remember specific matches. And this match felt specifically like an AEW match that I'm going to remember more just from like the sights of like horror and just like the end shot of like Tony, like, she looked sad. Like, Tony, like, you could tell she didn't want to do what she had to do. And just the emotion that they brought out since Mariah debuted. Like, she debuted as a fan of Toni Storm, and they followed through to this ending here, Hollywood ending at Revolution, solidifying Mariah May as a superstar in this division, but then also solidifying Toni Storm as their ace, their women's, like, John Cena at this point, or whatever comparison. Charlotte, like, she is the superstar of their women's division. They made that very clear, but I thought they delivered in the amount of time that they had. That's the only complaint about it.
Yeah, I would say that Tony versus Mariah was the highlight of the night, not just from a match standpoint, but from a storytelling standpoint. My only grudge with it is, like you said, Jake, they only got 13 minutes, almost even 13 minutes. Mercedes Moné versus Momo Watanabe, I hope I'm saying that right, got 18 minutes, 30 seconds. I mean, for a match that basically had no build, it was just a outside challenger randomly, challenging Mercedes for the title, which we knew that Mercedes was not going to lose. She's basically a belt collector at this point. And Tony versus Mariah getting only a few minutes less than that. I think as much as Tony and Mariah did, I think they could have done even more. As far as action goes, I would say Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher was the highlight of the night. Although I think there were one or two spots there that maybe kind of took it too far. I mean, if you give someone a styles clash on thumbtacks, maybe you should make that the finisher. It was the typical. I don't know if this is typical of Will Ospreay. It's certainly typical of one or two matches that AEW usually puts on their pay-per-views, where 5 or 6 points toward the end of the match, you're thinking this is the end of the match, and no, they're just going to continue on. And there was some criticism levied toward the Raw's main event in the cage match, but we'll get to that in a second. I think it's somewhat a little bit different. I think the crowd might have been exhausted after like the third or fourth false finish. But that being said, there was a lot of gore in this match in particular with, what was it? Fletcher was licking blood from the cage, and then he's shoving a United Empire armband that's covered in blood down to Ospreay's throat. I mean, somewhere, if The Undertaker was watching that, he was probably having conniptions, because remember back in the day when he was facing the Ortons, and I think one or both of them, I think it was a Cowboy Bob Orton, bled a little bit, and Undertaker realized he had some kind of blood disease later, and he got really upset about that. So I don't know if the AEW is, making sure everybody's got their blood tests up to date, but it's certainly shocking. And whether or not that's a good thing for a wrestling match, I guess it's left up for debate. But yeah, from an action standpoint, I would say Ospreay, Fletcher. From a storytelling standpoint, you go with Tony and Mariah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point with Mercedes and Watanabe. I didn't really think about that, nor did I bother to check the time statistic to see how much longer that was. But the fact that Tony and Mariah can do something like that in 13 minutes speaks to what they've progressed and been able to do with their time in AEW. And a lot of Mariah's success could be attributed to Tony, because she's been under her wing basically the whole time. But my goodness, what a story those two have put on the past year, it feels like. And what a match, in my opinion, should have been the main event. I think we all seem to share that common theme. But along with those matches that we mentioned, there was also Swerve versus Ricochet. We got a new number one contender for the AEW World Championship, as well as a new international champion in the form of Kenny, by God, Omega. Tony Khan has already announced a tournament starting tonight for a shot at this international championship at Dynasty. We've seen one half of the bracket, I believe. And obviously Swerve, I think, will be wrestling.
We got the whole bracket now, I think.
Not quite the whole bracket. There's that wild card
that's
supposed to be facing the Beast Mortos.
Okay, so we have John Moxley either wrestling Swerve on a Dynamite or probably Dynasty is my guess, right?
Probably Dynasty.
I'm guessing
because Swerve won the title at Dynasty last year. It's only appropriate that he challenges for the title there again. Agreed.
So where do you guys stand on the two matches that the winners came out of these? What do you think about this international tournament? Kenny winning. Is this good for AEW?
Well, I do have to go back and check to make sure, guys, but I'm just saying I'm not the best at this picks thing, but I'm pretty sure I had a perfect rundown on Revolution, and that's because it was the baby faces winning. Like, this was the show where it was like, let's have people triumph. Let's give Will Ospreay the big win. Let's give Kenny Omega the big win. Let's put Swerve in the main event against Moxley next show. Let's get people, even Hangman, like, let's get Hangman the big win. Like, all the big guys that are the biggest fans you go and cheer for got the win. I think that's what it comes down to for this Swerve thing. Like, Swerve, they want to, I don't know if Swerve's going to win the title. I don't think he's going to win the title. I think we're stuck with this Death Riders nonsense for a little bit longer. But they want to start giving us some of these. They're going to start giving us the main eventers to Moxley. And they're really going to pump up. Like, we've been asking for this with Moxley. We're like, hey, like, at least involve him with these main guys. Like, don't keep them all separate. They have to come together at this point. And here we are, first guy that's really stepping in that I feel like as a collective AEW fan base should be the main eventers they're building around, gets to face Moxley. Now here's the question though. Is John Moxley just Roman Reigns where he's going to take on all comers and just get wins over all of them? I could see that happening, which is my biggest worry about them sending Swerve to him first, because I do not want to see Swerve taking a pin to John Moxley in the year 2025. But I'll touch on the other part of this. Kenny Omega and Takeshita, amazing match. I can't imagine it's the last one they do ever. I'm honestly thinking if it's the way that we're talking about and it's Kenny and Okada at All In, run it back. They faced Takeshita and Kenny faced each other at All Out in Chicago for the first time or a singles match a couple years ago. Run it back, do an Iron Man match, do something crazy, like blow off the trilogy with something crazy for that Intercontinental Championship that's probably coming our way. But Kenny was amazing in this. This match told a great story. This match's story was about he just gritting through it and being vicious, attacking his stomach, attacking his abs the whole time, not being able to get to all the moves he wanted to, but just like kind of just powering through and figuring his way out. It was an awesome match. Not the best match of the night, and maybe not the level of athleticism we would have imagined from these guys in the past, but I think Kenny's going to have to work a little differently with his injury and just where he's at now. And he did a lot of babyface and peril stuff that I thought was awesome in that match. And Takeshita being the heel and just being a dominant monster that he is. He's so good. It's crazy. The alpha for sure. So I'm excited about that for Kenny. Excited to see where he goes tonight. But the biggest thing is Swerve in the main event scene here. What happens? Because I don't think they're doing it. I really think they're pulling one on us here by putting him there. What do you think, Mike?
I think it was the right call to have Swerve win the number one contendership. Actually, that match itself with Prince Nana told a pretty good story where you think he's walking out on Swerve and then he comes back and helps him, basically gives him a little bit of assist, and Swerve presents him with the robe afterwards. There was one or two things that I was hoping was going to happen. It looks like they might be happening further down the road as far as Ricochet goes. But as Swerve as a number one contender is great. Swerve as a potential to beat John Moxley, I don't think that's going to happen. If you think they're finally going to pull the trigger and end this a Death Rider story because they're just going to put the title on Swerve, I'm afraid I got some bad news for you.
But I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Listen, it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what the live fans think. There's only two people that matter. It's Tony Khan and John Moxley. This is John Moxley's baby. He's basically in Tony Khan's ear saying this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. We got to take this all the way, even if we hit some bumps in the road, even if there's a groan from the audience.
Bumps in the road. Everyone says this shit sucks.
Yeah, but
I don't understand how Moxley's voice is going to be the one thing that drags.
He's basically obsessed with copying things that he's seen in movies, like he wants to do Rocky and all this stuff. But
he might be Roman Reigns to Tony Khan. That's the thing.
Yeah, but Roman Reigns at least tried to make things interesting. He tried to make it cinema with his internal family strife.
Well,
and you got Wheeler Yuta walking out on Moxley.
Danielson steps in, like, isn't that what he's there to do? Is step in to be like, hey, listen, man, this
maybe not until the end.
Idea in the fucking world.
Maybe not until the very end.
Is the end of this just Danielson getting his win back?
No, because Danielson's retired. He's retired full time.
But he can't come back for one match.
The end of this is Darby at All In.
Here's the thing.
Assuming Darby comes back in one piece.
I'm not disagreeing with you because we all heard that rumor and are pretty sold on it. Darby shouldn't you shouldn't get it at this point. Like, I don't think I don't understand waiting on everything for Darby.
Remember how this all started. John Moxley got his win over Bryan Danielson because he challenged Darby to his number one contendership spot and basically just stole it from Darby. And he's the one, and the Death Riders are the ones that basically threw him down the steps, Brock Lesnar style. And that's why he's out of commission, so to speak. That's where
I understand the story. I'm following you, Mike. This is one of the issues I have with Tony Khan as a booker. I'm not as big of a criticizer as most are. Like, I'm more okay with the AEW's product than the average wrestling fan. I think that's fair to say. But my biggest issue with him is that he will just see through storylines to the end,
ultimately, he wants a big WrestleMania style conclusion for All In. For the title, especially because that title has been kept under lock and key literally ever since Moxley won it. And for that moment that title finally comes out of the briefcase, he wants that to be the big conclusion of the big stadium show that he's going to be having this summer. He's not going to do it at Dynasty. As great a champion as Swerve would be again, that's not going to be in his purview. And I'm afraid that it's not even going to be a pinning Swerve. He's just going to bulldog choke him out like he does everybody else.
But my thing with going all the way to All In is like Tony's really just going to bore everyone to death so he can do a big stadium moment for Darby.
It's not boring to him, and he's an audience of one. Darby? He's booking for an audience of one.
It's true, and especially with this thing right now.
If it's All In, he's booking
in his head. He
is of the biggest show all year. No, dude, you can't be that dumb that shallow-minded to.
Are the people going to care about
just Tony? I don't care how dumb he is. If he is dumb, you are not just thinking about solely you watching that product when you're going to book Wembley fucking Stadium. No chance.
It's not that he's dumb. He's just it's I got it. It's not that he's dumb. He's just a fucking mark.
Fucking mark.
All right, Partham's in timeout. 2 count, buddy. With that said, let's go on to Monday Night Raw, because we could go on about Tony Khan's creative decisions probably until he fixes it, which might be a very long time. So with that being said, I was just pulling a fast one, Partham, to let you know that we're always watching. We always have that third eye up. But anyway, Monday Night Raw went down at Madison Square Garden 2 nights ago. Oh my gosh, I almost got my days confused. Obviously highlighted by the main event, CM Punk, Seth Rollins in the steel cage. Kind of stealing the spotlight was the Tribal Chief, making his triumphant return. Other than that, we had some Logan Paul shenanigans and a couple other matches. What'd you boys think of the show? And then we'll get into more specifically the cage match.
Parthy, I want to hear your CM Punk side before I give my Seth Rollins side against your boy.
Actually, yeah, fuck it. Just go right into the debate in the cage match.
I thought it was a great cage match.
That's for business.
I thought that was a great cage match. It was a great back and forth. Yeah, they did a little finisher spamming, but my thing with that is, unlike Ospreay and Fletcher, every time they hit one of their big finishers, just like WWE teaches you to do, they let the moment breathe. They let the audience take in how big this is, and the commentators put over just how much each man wants to not give in and not lose to the other one, because there's so much hatred going around. The best spot of the match was they're on top of the cage, and you got that nice drone shot of them, on top of the cage. Great production from WWE's part. And then the superplex, they said it was from on top of the cage, but really Seth Rollins is just superplexing him from the top rope, and CM Punk's draped over the cage. But that visual makes it look like they're doing a superplex from the top of the cage, but that would be excessively dangerous. You might break a leg or something, and who would want to see that happen? But anyway, I digress. We pretty much all predicted Roman Reigns was going to come in the end of this, but being in a cage, you'd have to do it in a very specific way, unless like Roman just goes in and enters the cage while the match is happening. But the way they shot it, of course, is they shot Seth up close, and they shot away from, the hard cam side of the crowd. So you heard the crowd, rising, and you knew something was about to go down. But then, Roman Reigns grabbing Seth out of the cage, basically from out of nowhere, was a great visual, and it's a great way to do it. Don't bother with the music, just have him run in and just start creating havoc, inadvertently helping Seth win the match, but it didn't really feel or look like it. And I think that's the key, is that Seth gets his win, but he doesn't feel like a winner, because he's getting speared and stomped by Roman Reigns, and damn near had his head stomped on the steel steps. And then the intriguing part of it is, Roman Reigns sees Paul Heyman consoling CM Punk, and this just sets him off. And I think this is going to be one of the impetuses for the inevitable triple threat that we're anticipating for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent main event. Punk and Rollins, they've just been great together. And I like what you said about the cage spot at the top. Like the superplex was one thing, but I was scared for those guys. I was like, these guys like they're like just standing up here swinging. And they like at one time Rollins like kicked Punk's knee out and he like fell like really quick in between the things. And they have it set up so you're falling like in between there. And like I'm sure that they know what they're doing up there, but the visual just makes it look like terrifying to be up there punching and hitting each other. So it was a great match. They know how to pull emotion out of you. Rollins does, and Punk is one of the best ever at it. And so putting these two together, we knew it would be great. And I think they've delivered for their program since whenever the first kernel of it began to turning into a full-fledged thing, and now having two matches here and then probably being in a match together, like you said, at WrestleMania. Like they've done great work, and I can't wait to see them keep this going. The Roman thing is pretty interesting. 3 stomps. Every Shield member hit a stomp in a 24-hour period. So that was pretty cool because Roman don't hit that stomp a lot, and Moxley has been bringing it out quite often. But so that was just cool to see. Just nice. It's nice to see like Rollins, the facial expression when he realizes who took him out, and he's like, "This motherfucker, like you're kidding me, like." It's got to be you. And then Roman just destroys him because that's what Roman's just going to destroy that. Like at some point
wreck everyone
in this match, as we're telling the story of the match, at some point Rollins and Punk are going to have to work together to take out Roman. Like that's the interesting part of this is they're not Roman Reigns, bro. Roman Reigns is Superman. Like he doesn't lose. The only reason he's lost in the last, got pinned in the last 5 years because he was double teamed by his cousins, or John Cena and Undertaker showed up to help Cody Rhodes. That's when Roman loses. So it just adds a lot of interesting dynamics going forward. We still have the Punk favor that we don't know what that is with Heyman. The Heyman thing, consoling. What did he need to console Punk for? To lose the match?
Yeah, that was sketchy.
What was he consoling him for?
That was sketchy. What was sketchier to me is that we didn't even see him come out and then all of a sudden in the ring.
Yeah.
But what did you need that much consoling?
Did you come into the crowd or something? You didn't even come out with Roman? What's up?
All right. So now that we've gotten this development in this triple threat development,
let me just spiel real quick. So great match. Normally I'd hate on this. Not hating. Good match. Started a little slow. I will just say, if you are the type that doesn't like a lot of kickouts on finishers, don't watch this match. I don't think I've ever seen Punk and Seth Rollins kick out of so many finishers in one match in my goddamn life. With that being said, it works because the reason this program has worked for me the whole time is they hate each other so bad they would do anything to win against the other. That's why whenever they see each other in the same building, they're almost immediately fighting. 2 problems I have with this ending. One is very simple. It's not that bad. It's just the camera angle. You should have just shown Roman. You were clearly trying too hard when the crowd was going absolutely berserk to hide the fact that something was going on.
They started leaving it on Seth way too early, I think.
Way
that
too early.
The issue.
Way too early. And then here's another, the only other grudge I have, which is directly related to that. Seth hits Punk with that GTS, doesn't go for the pin right away, because they hate each other so bad, got to make sure it's done. The logic it looked like was he doesn't go for the pin right away because the door is wide open and he's in the corner anyway. So even if Punk were to recover, he could technically just get right out the door. That logic coming into play all of a sudden does not make sense when you hate this guy and want to beat him so bad. If you just hit that devastating GTS off the heights of that and then a stomp of such nature, you should be going for the pin immediately.
I have one, maybe 2 explanations for that possibly.
You want to beat him so bad. Why are you just sitting there enjoying it? That's not a valid enough thing.
Yeah, that's Seth. Remember the chamber. He took out John Cena. He threw him in a pod. He could have probably brought him back in and pinned him, but he was so focused on beating up CM Punk. And and the commentators were saying that cost him the match, that he's so laser focused on CM Punk. And he's just basically sitting there admiring his handiwork. Now, why doesn't he escape the cage? I think at one point in the match, CM Punk could have escaped the cage, but Rollins was basically mocking him and saying, is that the way you want to do it? Is that the way
he didn't do that? But otherwise, why aren't you pinning him? If he's been kicking out of all these GTSs, what makes you think waiting an extra 30 seconds, you're still going to get that 3 count?
Seth is a flawed guy, and all he can focus on is CM Punk, and he just wants to see CM Punk suffer.
Could have been setting up for the stomp,
and could have got countered and lost. But I digress. Partham, was that where you were going originally, or was
okay? So my question to you guys is, how do you see the favor playing out now that we had this development in the triple threat? Because I've heard various theories ranging from. Punk wants Heyman to be in his corner rather than Roman's, which I think is kind of a meh. It stems from the idea that Roman got so upset in his own head that seeing Paul Heyman and CM Punk together, that CM Punk think it would be some kind of psychological warfare to have Heyman in his corner rather than Roman's. But I don't think it's big enough for the build that this favor has been getting. The other two things would be either a favor to make this triple threat a main event of night one, but I don't think it's going to be that either necessarily, because Punk has been so emphasizing the wanting to main event WrestleMania. I think that moment where he knows he's going to be able to do it has to be a moment of triumph. It can't be just a booking decision or a match order decision that is released on social media or even is made by a general manager. I think it has to be Punk wins the right to main event of WrestleMania. And that's where I think the favor comes in. I think the favor is, I'm going to be facing Seth and Roman at the same time. I know Roman feels he was probably screwed over by Seth not being allowed to go into the Elimination Chamber because Seth took him out, and Roman only just got back a couple weeks later. And Seth, no doubt, would probably love to, stop CM Punk from main event of WrestleMania and go into a championship match himself. So I think the favor is that the three-way, because Punk and Roman have a legitimate gripe that they were screwed out of a championship opportunity to face Cody Rhodes in the main event. I think that Punk is going to advocate to Heyman to make this third man inserted into the Cody Cena match, a la WrestleMania 30 with Daniel Bryan and Triple H.
Okay, so I agree that is extremely likely. Or not likely, but that's like where in my mind I'm going there as well. That there has to be stakes to have a triple threat match at WrestleMania. Like, it's weird to have a triple threat grudge match. It just is. Like, it just doesn't. A grudge match in wrestling is a one-on-one match unless there's a title involved. Like, that's just wrestling history. And they could do it because they could do a triple threat with just these guys because they're 3 megastars and they could probably get off on just that, right? And then figure out a way. I think the title match, it makes a lot of sense because they've given us the connective tissue from last year that night one can lead into night two. And so if this was the night one main event, and it makes sense if it's the main event, if you want to actually put it as the main event over the women, it makes sense if its winner goes on to be in the main event the next night. That makes sense. I also still think the main event of Monday Night Raw on Netflix is a potential for this too, because they are going to want to push people to Netflix for that Raw. That Raw after Mania, in my opinion, is going to be like a WrestleMania level card too, like people that they can't get on the card. And if it's Roman's winning this triple threat, in my opinion. And so I think you could do Roman and Jay on Monday night after Jay wins the title. And that is a huge match to burn on. And that is a huge match that Netflix would love to have. I think there's going to be a huge match spinning out of WrestleMania as the Netflix main event. And I think this is where it could get tied.
Right now, where I stand, and this literally just popped in my head. The reason you heard a snap was because while you were talking, this is the only theory that popped into my head so far about what this favor could be. I think most likely for me, this favor is CM Punk is the number one contender for the WWE title for whoever wins at WrestleMania. How we get there, I don't know. But I think that'll be the favor, and then we'll get a version of heel Cena versus face Punk somewhere in the mix of all that. Maybe we get the introduction to that on the Raw after Mania. Who knows?
If you're gonna do heel Cena versus face Punk for a title, I think you guys save that for SummerSlam.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do it right away. Just get the idea out there. If you've got John Cena and CM Punk in main event talks in 2025, you got to do that at some point, right?
For all we know, Cena's gonna be a Brock Lesnar champion as a heel corporate champion and be on like 2 pay-per-views. Maybe that's easy to get.
He's backloaded enough appearances by not appearing so far in mid-March.
So if the face turn, so if he's really done this year, he's going to turn face by the end of the year, and that could be when all the appearances come. Is when he turns back babyface. Is like, oh my god, I've wasted half of my farewell year. I have to go see the people, and like goes out and just goes crazy. I could see that. Comes out too. I am interested in the thing with the favor. Maybe it doesn't even play into Mania. Maybe it's something that is the impetus for a huge story for Punk and Heyman coming out of Mania, and this is just leading into Mania is kind of reestablishing their relationship on screen fully for us and putting it head to head with Roman really for the first time and testing it too. Because there's a lot of things to spin out of that. And then maybe it's, something after Mania, Punk or Roman and Heyman have their official falling out. And Punk's like, all right, buddy, now about that favor. And then it comes into play Raw after Mania. Something like that could be, but you wouldn't. But I don't know why you'd put that chamber out there before Mania if you're not going to use it at Mania.
It is a whole weird dynamic that WWE only knows the realm of how it's going to unfold, but we can't wait to watch. But speaking of which, I was going to jump into this because we had another triple threat, but I mean, well, we don't yet, but it's pretty.
We know it's coming.
That we will have one, so that's exactly why I'm just going to like skip that part of it and tie it into this. As of right now, we got one guess each for one night and the second night. Who are the main events of WrestleMania 41 from Las Vegas?
Depends on who is using their backstage political influence. Because if Charlotte starts pushing for it, they'll probably have her and Tiffany main event night 1, just because. And they haven't really gotten going in their program yet. It's just been Tiffany has a match and then Charlotte shows up at the end to tower over her or beat her up just a little bit more. Tiffany really hasn't had face-to-face time with Charlotte yet. Bianca, and Rhea, they're just getting started. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I mean, I watched the promo last night, but I really don't understand Bianca and Rhea's problem with each other. I mean, it seems like
Rhea's issue
with Bianca is coming out of nowhere.
Rhea's issue with Bianca is that she was out there for their title match because she got
so
distracted
what?
by Bianca.
A lot of people are out there for
that's the thing is Rhea's wrong. Like she's misplacing.
So Rhea's got an attitude, and she like.
But Bianca was also out there.
And saw Bianca like fake helping, not like helping Io, but like encouraging her to get back up. And that pissed off Rhea because, like, why are you picking a side in this? Like, do you want to fight me or not? I think that's all it was. Was it stupid? Yeah, it was stupid. Rhea's in the wrong for sure. She made a mistake and it cost her the title.
Yeah, my theory here is they all have their own motivations that are all going to make sense as this goes out. Rhea is wrong for that, but she's also right because Bianca was definitely out there to fuck with the title match. Like Bianca is acting like she has done nothing wrong with all the stuff of chaos causing around her in her life. Bianca's going to turn heel by Mania. Like that's the seeds that they're planting here. I truly believe that that's coming. So I'm looking at that. And then
did you see both Bianca and Naomi were wearing black on SmackDown when they came out? Yes. When they did their epic cinema, promo together.
And Bianca showed up, and they do like the little player walk-ins for the beginning of Raw. Bianca was in all black for that before switching into a blue fit for the actual promo. So I think Bianca and Rhea are.
I thought she was still in a black fit for the promo.
No, she was in like a blue blazer or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're having an issue with each other, and Io in real life and in storyline is the disrespected champion who might just be a better wrestler than both of them and might just prove that by beating them in the triple threat match. And she's gotten back over by being a champion and then losing it and having the tag run and whatever else. She got back into this position by just being a great wrestler and putting on amazing matches and getting over with the crowd again. And so I think that this story, it all kind of meshes into that where Rhea and Bianca have such these big egos that they're overlooking Io, who's actually just better than them, and they need to focus on her.
All right, and the other candidate for main eventing night one is main event Jey Uso and Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship.
So can I just start off real quick? I think this is, if I have the women main eventing night one, which I think I do as of right now, because I think Punk and Roman could easily just snap their finger and put themselves in this spot. But I don't think Jey and Gunther are going to get this main event because they've been opening so many shows with Jey to get this crowd fired up because of that yeet for the crowd entrance. So I'd be very hard pressed to not see Jey Uso and Gunther open, not just any night of WrestleMania, open WrestleMania as a whole.
I can see that happening, but that moment where Jey Uso wins the title, I feel like that needs to be at the end of a night. Rather than the beginning of one. You got to really let that breathe and let that crowd party all the way until, they roll the credits and everything like that.
That is a very good point.
Yeah, and yeeting off the screen on Saturday night would be a hell of a visual. I think I want to go with that just for that visual, but I actually think it's going to be Charlotte for the politicking purposes.
Wow, something that not a lot of people were considering for a main event. There's a lot going on.
A women's main event and a men's main event, one-on-one, potentially singles matches. That makes sense for WrestleMania main events.
But then we're both on the same spot that John Cena and Cody got night 2 slot, right?
I mean, pretty much it's locked. It's locked.
Yeah, that's not even a question.
I mean, that's all we're waiting for. I'll be excited about other WrestleMania stuff, but I'm just waiting to see Cody and heel Cena. At this point, it's gonna be next week. I mean, Monday afternoon, Raw that we have for us from Brussels. They're being very coy about that, though, saying under the same roof. Yeah. Is Cena going to avoid Cody all night?
What if Cena doesn't even come out for the crowd? He just films.
Cena's just in his locker room.
Yeah, he does old school, what Rock did versus him, and he's just out in the dressing area or in the parking lot, talking shit. He's like, come get me, Cody. I'm here. I'm under the same roof.
Is it possible that they don't have Cena cut up any promo of one word up until WrestleMania? That he's just this, mute heel.
No, you have to do it.
You have to got to explain yourself. You're John Cena. You hold the record for most Make-A-Wish visits ever.
I'd hold it until April, though. I wouldn't let Cena talk overseas.
Okay. Okay, so having said that, what do you expect to hear from Cena as his explanation? I mean, most of us are saying, he went to Hollywood, he made all these movies, and now he understands The Rock. But is it as simple as that?
I didn't sell out. I bought in. Seth Rollins from 10 years ago. Bought into The Rock. He said, listen, this old guard, or this new guard of wrestlers, they don't get how this works. They don't know how to be actual stars. We're gonna show them the way.
Yeah, Cody's here on Mondays and Fridays. What a joke.
We don't show up for work. We show up 30 dates a year.
Great time.
I think it's just gonna be the Cody saying the business has changed the other day in that promo makes me think that Cena's gonna be like, yeah, it's changed. It's fucking terrible now. Y'all wouldn't have been able to do this without me.
That's true.
Setting what I did, and you're disrespecting my legacy. You're out here saying you're the quarterback. You're out here saying that this is your era, that you filled up this building. No, you wouldn't be able to do that without what I did, without the mentorship that I gave you. Because that's the thing too, is Cody and Cena have real history. Cody drove Cena around when he first came into WWE. They have war stories of being on the roads together that they can go back to if they want to, and I'm sure that they will.
Cody, when will you be man enough to say thank you, John? A lot of great things happening in the world of wrestling.
The easiest way for John Cena to be heel is just to be John Cena from Total Divas. Setting rules, talking monotone, just being completely uncharismatic, and just being so uptight about everything. I don't know.
There you go. Well, maybe we can recreate it.
Do you think we get a Cena Rock dual promo leading up to Mania? Them together, just as a heel unit?
I think maybe SmackDown or Go Home Raw, one of the two.
Yeah. We've seen John Cena for a few Raw dates. We haven't heard anything about The Rock as of now.
Well, a lot can happen between now and then. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. I'm going to leave you guys with one question. I don't need any thought. You just got to answer it for me. Which company is going to be the first to lose their respective titles on the opposites brand, TNA or NXT?
Ooh.
Because I noticed that they're not pulling. They are scared to do it thus far.
I know, and I really thought Fraxium was going to get one over last night. I'm going to say NXT still wins a TNA title.
Oh,
I think Obafemi's taking that X Division title.
I think that's probably the most likely as well, just because we've already seen TNA belts on WWE television more than we've seen. I don't think we've seen a WWE belt in a TNA.
I think
ring,
Fraxium had a tag.
Well, Oba showed up to TNA.
Was it, sorry, who was that?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oba did show up on TNA, I think, the past week.
And he had his belt?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Fraxium had a match on there against somebody that they won a defense of their
but
NXT
TNA is going to lose a belt to an NXT superstar before the other way around happens. TNA knows where the bread is buttered here.
We need AJ Styles TNA World Champion. That's what I need.
Can you imagine in 2025? Holy shit. Folks, it is a great time to be a wrestling fan. The Forbidden Door is open. I hope your doors and windows are open because we're finally getting some good weather here in Buffalo. Let's go enjoy it. Let's go have a good night now. Until next time, this is not the show where you are wrestling with your budget, not the show where you're wrestling with your conscience. This is Wrestling with Emotion.
Batavia down is more lots.